Hello and welcome, this is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, and it's a short one, the technique is very quick, but it creates a cool background. I'm going to create some Bold Stars background and cards. So I'm using the new Bold Stars embossing folder as well as the coordinating layering stencil that goes with it. Now the layering stencil only has 2 layers, but it colors all of those stars and gives a really cool and dimensional look. So it's a very easy one to do, especially if you're newer to layering stencils. Of course, I had to bring in my favorite Lisa Horton Crafts interference inks. I have 5 different pads here. I'm going to do 2 different backgrounds, one on light, one on dark. I always love playing with the interference inks and using them on dark cardstock as well as light cardstock. They give such a different effect. So on the light cardstock, we're going to see more of the dye properties of the inks and a little bit of the shimmer. I mean, you still get a lot of the shimmer, but the colors that we're seeing are the dye properties. On the black background, we're going to see more of the interference properties, so more of the shimmer properties to it. So for the light background, I'm using 3 different colors here. I'm using Opal Blush. The second color that I started was Galaxy Shimmer, and then I'm also going to be using some Night Sky around the edges. On my black background there, I'm using some Summer Garden, some Charcoal Gold. I also used a little bit of that Galaxy Shimmer because I just really like the kind of purpley burgundy color that the shimmer is. And I also pulled in a little bit of the Night Sky, mainly because I thought maybe that the mica, the interference color was different from the Charcoal Gold, but I didn't actually add too much because it was very similar or exactly the same. So I realized that I didn't need to. So you can see how that Night Sky really frames that background, and I didn't want to cover up any of that blue or the Galaxy Shimmer color, so I do have that popping out as well, but I really wanted it to be kind of a Galaxy Sky type look. So for the black background, I already said I'm pulling in a little bit of that Galaxy Shimmer as well, which I already did. Then I did the Summer Garden. You can see that I'm doing super quick blending here. I'm not making sure that it's perfectly blended or transitions from one color to the other perfectly. We're trying to create an interesting sky. So my focus is getting some colors towards the inside and then using the Night Sky and the light color to frame it. And on the dark color, I'm using the Charcoal Gold to frame it. So once I have my background done, I'm taking my Mighty Mister, putting some of it in the palm of my left hand and then using my right hand to flick that water out. These ink pads are water reactive. So wherever we have that water, that ink is going to lift up. So sometimes when I'm doing this, I will let that water sit a little bit and then I will use some paper towel to pick it up. Sometimes I will splatter it on there and pick it up immediately. And you get little different levels of ink removal. Once I have that done, I let that dry for a few minutes and then I'm going to go in with that layering stencil. So I'm going to use 2 metallic ink pads, the solid gold metallic ink pad. This is from the one that was released last fall that had the gold, silver, and bronze in it. Gold, silver, and copper in it. And then I'm also going to use the bronze metallic, and this is one of the new metallics that have just come out. I have an ink blending brush for each one of them. For all of my interference and metallic pads, I have their own separate ink blending brush, and I label them just so that I don't have to clean brushes, and I also don't have to worry about contaminating any colors or any inks. I'm going to do the stenciling for both the dark background as well as the light one at the same time. I might as well do both of them when that ink is on that stencil. And you don't need anything special to clean these inks off the stencil. I just used some warm water, ran it under the tap, and that ink comes right off of there. So it cleans off very easily. Now, I didn't really line up my stencil with any particular thing on my card. So doing the second layer was a little bit more challenging because I had already inked that background. I couldn't really see where that ink was for that first layer. So I do take a moment to kind of move and twist my background around a little bit just to make sure that it's lined up to the best ability. When I go to line up my embossing folder, there are some spaces where there shouldn't be, but I still get a pretty good match. So I'm going to do the same thing for the second stencil. I'm using the bronze for this layer. So I used the gold and the bronze. I think this would be great with the gold and the silver as well, like that combination, or even the copper and the bronze, or the copper and the fool's gold. I think you could have a lot of fun with the different metallic ink pads from Lisa Horton Crafts, both the new ones as well as the limited edition trio of pads that came out in the fall. So once these inks are on there, I will let them dry for a few moments, and then I'm going to match them up with my embossing folder. Always like to clean off my Tacky Mat while the ink is still fresh and still wet. Makes it nice and easy. Reduces some of the staining. Some of the staining happens anyways, and it doesn't affect the use of the Tacky Mat in any which way or form. It's just nice to get as much of it off as possible. So once I have matched up my pattern on the embossing folder, I'm going to emboss it with my Platinum 6 machine. Now, when I'm embossing the Lisa Horton Crafts embossing folders, they don't use the same plate stacking as the Spellbinders 3D embossing folder. So this is a 3D embossing folder, but I did need to use that second little shim from Spellbinders in there. And I also have a piece of index cardstock that I just keep on hand for my Lisa Horton Crafts embossing folders. They're just a little bit thinner. So I have that there. It tightens that sandwich up, but it also has a little bit of give to it. So it's not something that's too rigid. For my mats for this card, I just have a piece of white cardstock and black cardstock, and I trimmed those to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. My embossed and inked backgrounds here, I am trimming to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. So I'm going to have just a tiny little bit around it. So for my black mat here, I'm using the Summer Garden Interference pad, and I do this regularly. If you've seen any of my interference or metallic pad videos, this is nothing new. It's just the easiest way to get a mat that coordinates and blends exactly without trying to find a solid piece of cardstock that has a similar look to it or looks the same. This is super easy, and white and black cardstock tends to be fairly inexpensive. Now I do want to do a die cut sentiment, so I use those same pads that I used around the outside edges and just put some on the inside. My embossed and inked background here is going to cover up that center, so I might as well utilize that cardstock. If you don't feel comfortable doing this, you could take another piece of cardstock, but this just makes your cardstock go just a little bit further. For my layers, I'm gluing it with some Barely Art glue. I have it in a nice fine line bottle here. So this works perfect for both backgrounds as well as when I start to glue my sentiments together. For my sentiments, I'm using the Best Wishes and Thanks. This is the Thanks die cut here on the lighter background. And I'm going to use the Wedding Day Extra Large die set for the darker background. On that one, I'm just doing the Congrats sentiment. For my shadow, for the light background, I use white cardstock and then that inked part of the center part of that mat. So I utilized that cardstock. For the dark background, I actually used a black mat, but when you look at it after the fact, I think the sentiment would have been better on a white mat. It just would have popped a little bit more. Sometimes when you see them in person, they don't look quite as dark as they do in the video. And in the video that looks, or even in pictures, it looks a little bit dark. So if you want to brighten it up a little bit, all that it takes is doing a white or a light shadow around it. Another option would be to use white cardstock that has either the gold or the bronze ink on it. If you wanted to coordinate with more of the colors that are in the background, that would be a great way to do that as well. Or even specialty cardstock, but because we're using some metallic inks here, using ink on cardstock to do those sentiments works perfectly. And anytime I'm putting layers together, I have a large acrylic block that I just use to hold those layers down nice and flat, keeps everything nice and flat, and then it frees up my hand to do other things. So here's that first card there with that dark background, and we see more of the shimmer and the metallic from those inks. And then we have that light background. And I think the light one might even be my favorite. When I first started this, I thought I was going to prefer the dark one, but I really like the brightness of that light there. So fun, but very simple and quick cards, but they have a lot of dimension to them. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate all the time that you spend with me. Have a fantastic day.